Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm your host, Liz Hyman, bringing the rescue boat to your sales challenges. In this ever-changing sales environment, it's easy for leaders to feel adrift. We're here to be the beacon guiding you to success. Each episode, I'm joined by top sales experts and practitioners who have navigated this waters and come out victorious. Together, we'll uncover the insights and strategies that will help you hit your sales targets and grow your business. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Hyman, your host, and I'm here with Bryn Tillman and, hopefully Renee Bigelow. And we're going to be talking about we've been talking about how the world of sales is changing. And we need to talk about what does that mean for us as sellers? What does that mean for us as humans? And what does it mean for us as managers? There were two questions that came up, but really, Bryn started talking about we need to manage differently in the world we are in today. We need to create different kinds of territories. We need to understand that we're living in a virtual world. All right, so Bryn, start us out. How do we need to look at starting with territories, but the other things that we need to change as we think about how do we manage a sales team in this environment?
Well, we have to relook at KPIs, right? So our key performance indicators need to change. They can't be number of dials anymore.
Can I just amen that?
Yeah, I mean, we have to really start to focus on metrics that matter, metrics that have impact. And we need to focus more on, starting on where do we want to be and backing out to what activity is going to ignite that result. Remember, your salesperson can only control the activity, not the results. So leadership's responsible for continuously evaluating, is the activity the right activity that we need to get to those results. And we also can't put the pressure on the salesperson to hit a result or not hit a result when they've done all the activity we've asked of them. So this is a challenge, right? So, for example, I was working with a client that said, I have to let the salesperson go because they're not hitting any of their numbers. So we sat back and said, well, what are they actually doing? He's like, oh, well, they're blowing away their activity. So they're not lazy, but their activity isn't converting. So I went, okay, is it the messaging? Is it do we have the right list? Like I'm going all the way down this dark hole of trying to figure out what's wrong. The messaging was pretty darn good. I listened to a few of the calls. The rep was pretty good. So I'm racking my brain going, what is missing? And what was missing is they were measuring the wrong thing. They were measuring activity that did not convert. So that rep was about volume conversations versus warm conversations. So they were responsible for responding to every single inbound inquiry.
They were being penalized for working the top of the funnel.
Yes.
And they were being penalized because whoever was bringing the leads in, whatever marketing was designing, was not developing qualified leads.
Yes.
They were not the ones that were going to close. So it's both of those things, right?
And that's leadership. That's not the rep.
Well, the other thing is if they're working the top of the funnel, which is not wrong, because we just said in our last episode that you need to get in front of people earlier. You need to become the trusted advisor before they need the trusted advisor, right? So they know who to call when they have the question, right? Working the top of the funnel is not bad. Even if they aren't qualified, meaning ready to purchase, right? What you're saying then is, I only care about a short-term conversion. I don't care about my future. I don't care about future growth, right? So that salesperson was being penalized for getting there early, getting in the conversation, helping them out, doing whatever. If you said you listened to stuff and they were doing a good job,
Great
they
job.
were being penalized because the customer wasn't ready yet.
Correct.
Right? So
they were being judged on metrics that would not have even led to the right sales.
Right.
I'll tell you even worse. If you look at that same customer, again, I don't know if you're still working with them, but I bet if you went back and looked at their CRM, every one of those that didn't convert right away on those early calls was marked as closed lost and people stopped working them.
100%.
Yes. Instead of saying, in a year, this person is going to be our customer, I'm just going to keep an open dialogue going for while they're on this journey.
Can I just say amen?
Yeah, I absolutely. So as we start thinking about KPIs, this is one of the things that I talk about a lot is funnel-based KPIs. What am I putting in the top of the funnel? Am I putting enough in the top of the funnel? How many am I qualifying? How many are moving into conversations where they're willing to qualify and decide whether this is a fit or not? How many are then transforming into prospects? And if they're not, why aren't they? Is it because it's too early? Is it because it's not really a qualified lead? So if we're looking at the funnel and basing our KPIs more on progress toward goal, we will have a totally different conversation. And I think it's important to have people working the top of the funnel. Those people may not be closing as much business, but they are definitely doing important work. Building relationships and reputation with our customers matters. So KPIs are important. Conversations, real meaningful conversations are important. But as managers, we need to figure out how to measure them. What else do managers need to be doing differently? I've lost them both.
No, what else do we need to do differently? I think we have to engineer ways for our team to be in conversations more. And we have to set up a process that goes to that. Our lovely insight that we got from an audience member earlier about somebody who doesn't want to just be tied behind the desk. Like, how do we keep them happy if we say you need to make a bunch of phone calls, right? Maybe that is a perfect example of we need to engineer ways for that person to get into more conversations that isn't sitting behind a desk making a call. And is there a way in your industry, in your company, in your, if you're a global SaaS and you have a very small sales team, that's going to be kind of hard to get them in person, right? But maybe they can be more active on LinkedIn and having lots of conversations on LinkedIn that feels a little more interpersonal than, hi, I'd like to talk about, hi, like trying to say the same script over and over on a phone just to get into a conversation, right? I think it's like kind of identifying this way where we can engineer ways to get them in front of more, not in front of people, but into more conversations. Do they go to more industry events? Do you budget for that? Do they go to networking opportunities? Do they participate in forums or groups where they can contribute value besides selling, right? Do they participate in social media? Do they engage with former customers more often so that they can be talking to them and engineer situations for possible referrals, right? There are plenty of ways that we can put into those activities, engineering ways to get them into conversations.
Well, I think also hiring the right person for the job that you have.
Yeah.
Is this a field sales rep who's got to be out every day and you hire somebody who'd rather sit behind a desk? Or is this somebody who wants to be out every day, getting on airplanes, going to meet people? Or is this somebody who, dreads having to get on an airplane? Make it really clear what the job is. And again, everybody can't do everything. So pick the people that can best fill the role that you have, the need that you have. So rather than waiting until you've got them in the job and they're miserable because they want to be out talking to people and you want them sitting behind a desk, make sure that you understand the role that you have and who you're hiring for that role. So as sales managers, as sales leaders, the things that we need to think about is, are we really clear about the job that needs to be done? Do we have the right people doing that job? Are we having them do activities that matter and that we'll get the results that we need? Are we having them do the activities they're most effective doing? Some people are better using LinkedIn and some people are better on the phone. So where are these sales reps best? And how are we organizing and measuring that team? Again, measure what matters. I love to use the funnel as the basis of the beginning of the KPIs. Stop measuring meaningless activity. Start measuring meaningful activity. And think about how you're leveraging the relationships and the strengths that your team has to get the best results. So divide up territories in a way that is meaningful. Maybe they don't need to have territories at all. Maybe they have industries. Maybe it's just whoever has the relationship has that client. Whatever it is that you're doing, make sure it makes sense with the team that you have in the environment that you're selling in this modern age. So I think the biggest thing that as sales leaders and company leaders that we need to do is really think about what is our customer doing? What are our salespeople doing? And how do we better link our salespeople to our customers in the environment that we have?
I would also add investing in them. And I mean,
Yeah.
your traditional training, right? How well do they know your products? How well do they know your vendors? How well do they know your ecosystem? How well do they know their target market, right? How much industry exposure are they getting? Those are kind of traditional. But there are other things that I see, I really see salespeople starved for. When I go into a lot of clients, I end up offering it because I can tell they're really they're starved for it. Like, we make sure we get headshots done, right? Like, get headshots. This is like a minimal expense, or somebody on your marketing team probably has to do content a lot. They can help, right? Set it up, let people know. People are picky. They don't want to be surprised because of bad hair day or what they're wearing, or they didn't get a lot of sleep last night. So, schedule it. Headshots are a huge roadblock. Make sure they have visuals and things that they can use if you're asking them to engage on social media. Do they have like a repository or a library where they can pull some stock images and things like that so they don't have to recreate the wheel? Do they have something for their cover photo or that banner behind them on LinkedIn? Do they have some examples of some posts they could do? Have you done some of the, we invest in like doing role playing for conversations, but we don't invest in making our people look the best when they go out and represent us.
In a really visual world,
yeah,
we need to make sure they're visually
videos, or helping them make sure that they have what they need to go to the trade show and look right. Do they know how to dress at the trade show? Do they need a company logo shirt? Do they, like, what are those things? Those are minimal investments, and there's sometimes some resistance, like if it's dressing them up on LinkedIn and really helping them get a polished profile on LinkedIn. Some people have resistance, like, maybe I'm getting them ready for another job. I don't want to get them ready for another job. I'm like, they're interacting with, as a representative of your brand right now. I promise you, customers are investigating and researching who the team is that they will be working with. And if they're not seeing good stuff, they're not going to trust your company. You need to make them look as good as you possibly can.
You just reminded me of something that I've heard leaders say about investing in their employees. Well, I don't want to train them. If I train them, they'll go somewhere else. And my reaction is, if you don't train them, they'll stay.
Yeah. And I actually have heard you say that to a client in a meeting. I'm witness.
Like, why would you want untrained people in your business? Train them. If they leave, congratulate them and send them on their way, because they're developing as human beings and they'll love you. And so bring you business in their new job. We need to honor as people grow and develop, and we need to help them grow and develop. And if we're not, we're hurting them, we're hurting us, we're hurting our company. It's just super important.
I think the helping make sure that they are presenting their best self is just often, it's not so much as a resistance as it's an overlooked thing, right? Like, we just can't expect employees to take on everything on their own, right? To know how to represent themselves in every form or fashion without offering some assistance. They may come in with a perfectly great headshot. I'm not saying you need to make everybody look like a robot army in the exact same shot with the exact same background and everything for your company. They have a great headshot. They may not want to replace it, and you might be fine with that, but they may not have a profile picture or one that you can tell is from a wedding where they felt like they looked presentable because they were all dressed up and they feel good about the photo, and it's maybe not the most professional photo. They just offer a headshot, right? These are not that hard. They're minimal investments for what the ROI is.
Brynn, any last thought?
Well, obviously, when we're talking about LinkedIn, I think it's really important that the profiles are a hybrid of the company voice and the rep's voice. They are representing you, and these are micro landing pages. So we want to make sure that, if they are connecting to your company, that they're following your social media policy, which may be no political opinions, right? Like nothing controversial. Keep that for Facebook or Instagram, right? But if you're going to connect to our business, these are our policies. I had a client who had a very controversial employee who was also a very good employee. And the decision was made that he had to disconnect his LinkedIn profile from the company if he wanted to continue the way that he would. He could not mention the company on LinkedIn. So that was a decision they had to make, but they had to make it because it was, it was a reflection. So from a company perspective, you want to make sure that you do an audit. What's going on? If they share, anything that's not appropriate, you want to kind of just keep tabs on that. This is your reputation as a company, and it's important that you maintain that. Whatever that is. You may decide that you have a particular voice that might be controversial, but that's your voice, right? Like so. So I think really taking this seriously, and I love the idea of headshot and banner, but I think it needs to go even deeper. Now, the last thing I want to say is you want to make sure that all of these profiles have shifted from a resume to a resource, because these are your micro landing pages. They are all being vetted before you have conversations. So if they show up and your sales rep is like, I'm the best negotiator and I overcome lots of objections, that is not what your buyer wants to read. That's, really those are resumes built for finding another job. If the profile is designed so that they're seen as the subject matter expert or the thought leader or resource, that micro landing page is working for you, not against you. So that's my final thought.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us in the Sales SOS podcast and our discussion of the changing sales landscape and how, as managers, we need to look at it differently.
And that's a wrap of this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope today's episode has equipped you to navigate the sales seas with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to the Sales SOS podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday, or share your questions on YouTube or LinkedIn. Until next time, keep sailing towards those sales goals. I'm Liz Hyman, your captain here at the Sales SOS podcast, saying smooth sailing and successful selling.